Let's move on now to Chapter 6, talking about what and how to teach in a curriculum, and that's not always an easy thing to describe. And so this is going to be kind of a fast, crude overview, kind of what we call a flyover of this area. It will be an introduction and just about what is taught and how it's taught, and you will need to revisit this a number of times. In fact, we're not going to do some of this chapter because of how thick and complicated it is. But the things we're going to talk about, first of all, the role of school and society, and it kind of fits into that philosophical, political thing that we've talked about in some of the other chapters, and then some of the philosophies of education that come along, and they too can get a little thick and political and lean politically one way or another. Well, one way. This textbook leans one way specifically. And then the flyover a little bit about how individuals learn and traditions and history of education. And so that's what this will be. And like I said, this really deserves an entire book. And we're going to fly over it real quickly in just a little bit here. So let's see what we can do. So this is Chapter 6, what is taught and how is it taught, and part of working with students in our textbook. And first I just want to take you out there and just show you the layout of this chapter from your textbook. Under Curriculum and Instruction Foundations, this chapter is broken into two parts. And again, this is an entire textbook, an entire course on these things, and we're going to fly over very briefly to introduce you to it. But the first part on what is taught comes from the curriculum orientations, contemporary influences, and has some breakdowns in here, and then we'll come over here to how it is taught. And you'll follow along, and you'll play a big part, your project will play a big part in the curriculum. And then I will try and cover this, and again, this is a flyover. We're not going to do observing in the classroom and these different approaches to that. We're not going to cover that a little bit on this, and I won't test you on this just because this too is an entire deal that we're not going to deal with today. Okay, let's look at this. Well, Curriculum Instruction Foundations, the answer to what is worth knowing and how this knowledge can be taught is influenced by the following factors: the role in school societies, philosophies, how individuals learn, and traditions and history of education. And why this comes to be is that the traditions often drive this more than anything else. The reason this being is so much is that so many things we do have to do with tradition and history of education. In other words, we're not even sure why we do some things, just the way we've always done it. And thank goodness that's one of the things your generation is going to be able to do, is do things that aren't traditionally been done. Okay. So here's some focus questions: what factors define what is worth knowing? And this is the one we talked about earlier. That's an ongoing debate. Does the school have a role in teaching values, developing character, ethics? Whose values? And should knowledge focus on the values of a society, or should a wide worldview be taught? And how should teachers teach? Okay, so first of all, what is curriculum? Well, it's become to mean the sequence. Okay, and this is the word that you want to know here, is sequence of learning experiences, or the plan of study to be followed to reach educational goals. And this is known as the formal curriculum. And then the informal curriculum is also defined as all experiences in the educational setting. And because sometimes it doesn't have things that we're even planning to do, and that becomes that informal part. So formal and informal part of the curriculum. So the formal curriculum refers to the explicit. Explicit means that you've overtly taught or planned curriculum, a series of planned events intended to have educational consequences, and often defined by your school. In other words, you don't get to pick this. It is picked by a school, and now of course driven very much by our state governments and our federal governments, because of course anybody that gives you money gets to tell you what to do. And however, individuals do not learn information exactly as it's presented to them, giving rise to the term intercurriculum. Things that you're teaching me one thing in this formal curriculum, and I'm picking up something else. That's known as this inner curriculum. It's not as exactly as it's presented. Okay. Inner curriculum is the brain tries to make sense of what is taught in light of what it already knows, and as a result, individuals may experience the curriculum differently from others. This individual internalization as learners process new information is called that inner curriculum. And one of the things that comes into play here is the fact that their prior experiences come into it. And so they're hearing things or learning things, number one, maybe doesn't make sense, but number two, maybe more so, is conflicts with what they already know. That you're trying to give them values, ideas and stuff that conflict what they're learning in other places, home, church, community, those types of things. And then the last one that is really interesting is this notion of hidden curriculum. And this often doesn't sit well when we talk about the hidden curriculum. That's the content, rules, and content, rules in the classroom, organization of the class, the information that's not taught, send messages to students about what is important and appropriate. These messages are sent during daily encounters and have been termed the hidden curriculum. And again, for one thing, they can be conflicting. And one of the things that's a hidden curriculum when we talk about organization of the class and information not taught is how you treat certain students, certain groups, certain individuals, those types of things. Your attitude about certain parts of the curriculum. Your attitudes about the school. Your attitudes about different things. Those become part of the hidden curriculum because you're sending a message. You're teaching something that you don't realize you're teaching. And it's the same way I'm finding as a parent that I can be saying one thing, but they're watching me and they're looking for these hidden values, these hidden things also. But in school, it's a hidden curriculum. It's how you present, how you teach, how you conduct yourself is all part of that. What are some of the hidden messages you learned in school? Well, let's think about that. One of the things that I think I learned was that going to college was going to be very important. That was a hidden message. Okay? Nobody said that, but we conducted the curriculum, we conducted the classes 30 years ago as if everybody was going to college. That was a hidden message. You need to write something right here now in your notes. What are some things that you learned in school that weren't intended, that were part of that hidden curriculum? Stop this and do that now. Okay, and now, how can teachers guard against sending unwanted hidden messages? This is a little trickier. I want you to put something down for this too. How can teachers guard against sending unwanted messages? Anybody? Anyone? 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 Think about this. And then we have these things, and this is where you're going to get involved. The curriculum orientation. How do we decide what content's important? And then learner-centered orientation states that we teach to the needs and interests of students. And then next one, needs of the society orientation, identifies what is important by what society needs. And then the academic subjects orientation emphasizes traditional school subjects. So these four things you're going to get to elaborate a little bit on. And let me take you out there now to the beginning of this. Looks like this. Here, and I've done this one for Miss Bridget here, but like first one, like here, you give a little thing on the textbook on this, and this helps if you black this, bold this, and then just a little brief description, because we're all going to study from this, and this will take us clear down to here where we go the cases for and against each of these right from the textbook. And of course, I got to have a little link over here, a little picture over here. You don't have to have a link this time, but you search for some image that symbolizes this. A learner-centered orientation that we're letting the kids help drive this a little bit. Okay? And so this is how you'll do this part of it. And not all of you, but a number of you. And most of these are the case for it and against it. Case for it, case against it. It's all right in the textbook. But this will be a little study guide for us for the test and our knowledge base right here on the curriculum. Okay. Which curriculum orientation is the one that seems to be the closest to your views, and why? And you may have to come back to this after everybody's done that subject area thing. Everybody's contributed to this. Because each one is going to tell you cases for and against each of them. And first they're going to be what it is, and then for and against. And so you'll have a chance to study that all and come back and respond to this in your notes. Can the elements of the different combinations be combined? What do you see as a current curriculum emphasis? All this. And then contemporary influences of curriculum are this also. And again, I am going to defer to you for this same thing. Right here, common curriculum emphasis, state standards, the case for it, the case against it, state curriculum standards for and teachers, like high-stakes testings, case for it, case against it. And this all comes right out of your textbook. It's all there for you. And again, I want a picture, an image on this side. And you can resize it so it fits in here. But I don't want this to be too long, very brief, so we have a base of knowledge here for all of us to study from. Okay. And this is the first link then on the test from the high-stakes testing that you'll want to watch. And then I've got some discussion for you up on the site for this. That is this. What is this? Should promotions and graduations hinge on a single test scores? These tests are shaping school curricula. Is this a problem? What is the alternatives? This is where you get to respond to here from the video viewpoint. Okay. Question of how important knowledge can be taught to the young is important to teachers because research initiatives that teachers are the most significant variable that influences academic performance. Have you heard that before? Teachers are the most significant variable. When they study, when research is done about what's the most important thing in children learning in school, it's the role of the teacher. That's significant, how good the teacher is. And so we continue to come back to that. So an effective teaching requires expertise in instructional design and delivery. And I'm going to tell you another one here that you're going to want to add to this. You got to have content. I've seen many student teachers struggle because they're not strong enough in their content. And how do you become strong in content? You got to study hard in these general education courses. If you're not doing well, if you're struggling through your math and your science and your literature and your comp classes and stuff like that, you're going to struggle when you get out there because you want to be so confident in your content that you don't have to worry about content. You can concentrate on instructional design and delivery. That's why you want to really master content. So study hard in these gen ed courses. And then teacher dispositions plays a role in teaching. The questions of who can teach the young focuses on teacher's disposition. And this is a relatively new thing here in the last 7 or 8 years that we never talked about before, and that is those perceptions and attitudes that a teacher has that makes them successful. Perceptions and attitudes. It kind of shapes their behaviors in the classroom. These perceptions are influenced by the values and attitudes of the individual teacher. Therefore, teachers' dispositions will influence how and when they utilize teaching skills. And at DSU, we do a number of things, how we keep an eye on teachers, our teacher candidates, we call them, their dispositions. Like, if you view teaching as a technical act or just something you do, then teaching is merely learning the right response to predictable issues and problems. But if you view teaching as a complex interpersonal act involving human desires and motivations, then teaching is applying professional judgment to unique situations. I have had teachers that do technical teaching, and so have you. But what we're aspiring to do is prepare you to be someone that sees it as a complex internal interpersonal act. Some important beliefs that influence the teacher perceptions and behaviors include this kind of an attitude. All students are worthy individuals. Diversity strengthens education and society. Students, teachers must be lifelong learners. All students are able to succeed. Lessons should encourage learners to be actively in creating their own knowledge. Okay? And this is the thing, the way education is changing too, that now we expect you, as well as the students you'll be teaching, to be more actively engaged in learning and creating your own knowledge. One of the things that's changed is that the internet has made that possible now, that there's so much information and stuff out there on the web that there's lots and lots of knowledge. So one of the things that's changing in our world is we have to teach you the value of the information, how to assign value, because no matter what you want to learn about, it's out there someplace. And that's how the role is changing, and that'll be a change for you. That used to be in a setting, the teacher and a textbook were the only purveyors of knowledge. And now, of course, you can find so much of your own knowledge that what teachers and schools have to do more is help you assign the value of that knowledge that's coming in. And this is a nice coin, too, that you'll want to remember in your teaching, and that is active teaching. And this is what I critique student teachers on. Are you using active teaching? It involves taking a direct role and leading the class. Active teaching associated with enhanced learner achievement. Active teaching includes organizing content, motivating students, presenting information, monitoring and checking understanding, and assessing student learning. Active teachers accept responsibility for teaching rather than expecting them to learn from the curriculum materials. And I've said this before, and I'll say it to you again. This is how schooling and education has changed in the last 10 to 15 years, and that is, it isn't all about teaching anymore. It's about learning. And what we're measuring, No Child Left Behind and a number of other things that we're going to talk about, is what the kids have learned. Before, in the past, traditionally, a history, we were very concerned about teaching, what you're teaching. But now we've shifted away from that, and this is what active teachers will find. It's your responsibility for the students' learning, not just for your teaching. And then good program planning translates into fewer behavior problems and more successful lessons. Program planning responsibilities include matching instruction to learners' characteristics, conducting task analysis to identify an appropriate beginning point and a logical sequence for instruction. We'll talk a little more about that on the next slide. And specifying learner intentions and matching programs to learner characteristics. And that's out of your textbook. So what is that task analysis? Well, it involves identifying appropriate beginning points and logical sequence of instruction. What is that? Task analysis is knowing where to start teaching something. Whether you're teaching 10th grade math or 3rd grade, being able to analyze where you need to start teaching and what this, how to sequence from there. Task analysis enables the teacher to determine what prerequisite knowledge and skill is needed to achieve success. You've got to be able to break down a task. For example, if you're going to teach someone to do like division, we say this is the one that really determines who's ready to do math. Is if you're in elementary teaching division, what are the prerequisites that you need to do division? Well, first of all, obviously you have to add and subtract, but you need to know something about multiples and factoring too. Because if you're going to do, divide 35 into 380, you got to know how many times 3 goes into something. You need some factoring. And that is a task analysis, knowing what those prerequisites are. Then also, do you have learning intentions? sometimes called lesson objectives. And again, we're going to beat you over the head with this at DSU before we let you go student teach about being able to write accurate lesson objectives. And this textbook's calling learning intentions. In other words, what is it that you want them to learn from your teaching in this specific lesson? And learning intentions identify what learners should be able to do as a result of learning this content. And this is how we'll teach you to write them. That at the end of this is what you will be able to do. And this is how I'd write this division thing. Given a division problem, student will be able to do long division, with 90% accuracy. What should they be able to do at the end? That's the learning intention. That's the lesson objective. That's how you'd write that. Next part talks about this constructivist teachers. Constructivist teachers believe that learning is constructed by the brain as it seeks to relate new knowledge to prior knowledge. Many constructivists use cooperative groups, small groups of learners working together to complete a given task. We had a professor on campus. He's been gone for about 8 or 9 years now, but he was a constructivist teacher. And he taught all of his university courses exclusively as a constructivist teacher. In other words, problem solving and let them relate new knowledge to what they already knew. He ran into some barriers, of course, because students weren't quite ready to do that. I grabbed this out of your textbook. Once that task analysis is performed and the lesson intentions identified, then the content needs to be presented in a comprehensible manner. Comprehensible means presented the new material at a level that is appropriate for the development level of prior knowledge of the students. Keep in mind that what might be comprehensible for one group of students might not be comprehensible for another group of students. Okay, what does this mean? This means you do it one way this year, we do it the same every year, and I guarantee you'll have problems if you can't make adjustments for groups. This means that just because a lesson was appropriate for one group does not mean it'll be appropriate for another group of students. Comprehensible and effective lesson instruction has several keys to it. Okay? And this is where we get from this lesson of, did you teach 30 years or 1 year 30 times? That you create, you're teaching 1 year and you present it 30 more times, and you're going to have years and groups that don't function. Okay? Let me just jump back here to constructivist approach. Have you heard of this? A constructivist teacher. It's built on learning is constructed by the brain as it seeks to relate new knowledge to prior knowledge. Give you an example when this was taught to me by Alex, he's 10 now, but when he was 5. It was a summer day, and there was a fly in the house, and I swatted it with the fly swatter. And of course, it died right there on the table. And he's a little horrified by it. It's laying there. And he said, "Is it dead?" And of course I said yes. And he said, "Now what will happen to it? Will it go to heaven like Grandma?" Okay. Here's what he's doing. He's taking his brain, relating new knowledge to his prior knowledge. His prior knowledge is he knows that Grandma has died long before he was around. His Grandma died 25 years ago, 20 years before he died, or before he was born. 15 years before he was born. He knows she's dead, she's in heaven. So he takes new knowledge. The fly is dead. Is that what happens to the fly, just like happens to Grandma? That's what constructivists do. And your job is to help frame that. In cooperative groups, and again, you're going to get lots of these cooperative groups, but small groups are working together to complete a given task. And the difference between this and small group work is that everybody in the group has a very specific task. Sometimes we say here, work in groups, and 3 or 4 of you get together, and one person does all the work, and the other 3 clap and cheer for them. For constructive, our cooperative groups is that one person is to write things down, one person is to do the researcher, one is the timer, one reports it at the end, and everybody has a assigned group, and each one's graded individually on their task, and then the group is on their product. That's a cooperative group. So let's talk again about this lesson presentation. Well, it has to be stimulating and maintaining interest. This is out of page 154. I stole this from. Motivation at the beginning of the learning sequence, motivation during, and motivation at the conclusion. And if you can figure out how to stimulate and maintain interest, you have taken a huge step towards being a successful teacher. And then you also have to sequence that lesson. You have to connect the discourse, the things they don't understand. You have to be able to do little summaries inside the lesson and move them forward. And then here's a bigger challenge, I think, and this is, again, my bias from special ed background, is you have to figure out pacing. You have to ask questions throughout the lesson. It helps to ensure that the content is being learned. And why pacing is so interesting is that you're going to have that bell-shaped curve of learners where, normal is 100, and that you'll have groups of students that can't keep up, and some that go this is too slow. And so you're trying to figure out where is that balance of how fast I should move. That's pacing. And that's one of my things. Once you master this, you're now a master teacher. One of my frustrations for my kids where they go to school is they don't move fast enough. That they're constantly kind of holding back for the whole group to move forward. And I think that my kids need to be pushed harder. They need to work harder. I want to see them a little more frustrated. I don't like them just bouncing along. But that's pacing. Or here's a little more constructivism. Emphasize concepts and ideas rather than small bits of information. Learning is constructed by the brain as it seeks to relate new knowledge to prior knowledge. Okay, therefore, the brain constructs the meaning of understanding. Each student will have a unique construction. Sometimes these constructions might be misconceptions. And like I was sharing with Alex, is it in heaven like grandma? That it's a misconception. And that's your job to be part of that in helping guide that. That's what constructivism does. It uses mastery goals rather than performance goals. Mastery is that you work this till you understand the content. Performance is more of a competition-based thing, is how quick can you perform this. Constructivism. One of the most important dimensions of teacher clarity is the verbal and nonverbal teacher behavior. What do you think of this verbal and nonverbal? Well, nonverbal teacher behavior has several elements. The paralanguage influences what we hear and how we hear it. Paralanguage communication is voice, intonations, precision, articulation, and the rate of speaking. And where does paralanguage come from? What other nonverbal behaviors affect communication? Well, one of the things that you'll learn is to have some inflections in your voice, up and down, not the same voice all the time. And you'll create a lot of learning from those. If you have the same voice all the time, we're not sure what to pay attention to. And so those articulations, those fluctuations, can tell us when that's more important or less important. And I've observed a number of teachers, of student teachers, who have the same voice from the time they get there in the morning until they leave. Some settings, it's a very good voice, but others, they completely forget to change the inflections of their voice. So what other nonverbal behaviors affect communications? Well, you can the way you conduct yourself, though, your body language, those types of things can also send messages. Very hard to say you're excited about teaching something when you're not. Your body won't lie, even though your lips may. It moves into questions, inquiry about. We talked about asking questions throughout the through the lessons, and it has several components. Lower level ones, questions that ask for recall information, and then multiple choice matching this. And this is where most students want their tests, most college students. But you move up to this higher level one, questions that require more sophisticated thought process, such as application and analysis. Open-ended questions like essays, practical application of information, constructing, comparing, contrasting test questions. And again, for the most part, students don't like those. And as a professor, they're a little more challenging to grade. But it'll be a thing you're challenged with also. Clarity of questions involves avoiding questions that can be responded to in many ways. Wait time is an interval between the questions and for response. How long are you willing to wait? One of the things that I talk about with students a lot is, what about wait time? Especially waiting for attention. Alex, my 10-year-old, and both my kids have taught me this about wait time, and that is this. For example, on Sunday when we go to service, at times they have a hard time keeping up with the message that's being taught. And what I realize from watching them is they can't listen that fast. They need more time between phrases and between bits of information to take it in and to fit it with what they already know. Because I have that sometimes. You have that sometimes, like in a lecture. That's a nice thing about a video lecture here, like you're getting. You can stop this anytime and back up and replay it and have time. If we're sitting in the classroom, once I say it, it's gone. And that's what wait time can do for you also, is what is that interval between those things that allow me to process that? Allow students to process what's being said, what information is being given. Do it a lot with your voice and stuff also. Well, this was interesting on 159 about homework. More likely to improve achievement when teachers take time to explain the purpose of the assignment. And I can remember many times that there was just an assignment and nobody ever explained it. The benefits of homework also depend on the age groups. It benefits high school students most, middle and junior high schools only about half as much, and elementary students only marginally. In general, it appears that in middle school and junior high, homework influences achievement until students' total assignments reach about 2 hours a night. Now, I think that's too much. Senior high can from longer, but I'm telling you, how do you function in our society if you've got 2 hours of homework a night? Well, first thing I think of, you better not be in any other activities at school if you're going to do 2 hours a night. The only thing it does kind of leave out here is what time you have in school. And of course, what I remember about this, as do you, is never wanting to work on this in school. But diligent students can eat up a lot of this in school. But I'd be very wary of 2 hours a night. And one of the things, especially if you're a high school teacher, you don't know what the other assignments are. You know, if you're in elementary, you have a lot more control, and even middle school. But high school, you don't know what else is being out there. So here, this is from Cooper in 2001, offers the following guidelines. A 10-minute rule. Limit your students' total homework assignment to 10 minutes multiplied by the grade level. And know your purpose, and don't limit homework to academics. And I think that's important, is that they're not limited to academics. And use homework as one of several instructional strategies. Now let me tell you something else I learned. Have a pattern for your homework. Like, for example, I taught 8th grade math, and they knew Monday through Thursday, rain, sleet, or shine, we had an assignment. And I tried to have that assignment about a 15-minute practice of what we learned in class that day. So one of the things that I would not accept from them after about the first 2 or 3 weeks of school is there any homework? Because they knew I wanted that pattern. And where I think it can be a challenge to students sometimes is if you have it once or twice a week, and some days you have an hour of it, and some days you have 10 minutes of it. You know, try and be more consistent. I found that my return on it was much better that way. Just knowing those veganisms you get for free. So what is the role of homework in learning? Can too much homework be detrimental to learning? Can you determine how much homework to assign? Can you gain support from parents for homework policies? Not covering or going to cover observing the class. Oh yeah, this what I said earlier. I'm not going to cover this about observing the class, so don't worry about those pages. But I want to go back to this. How do you get support from parents? Well, especially for elementary kids, again, you need to communicate the importance of it, what it's for. It'd be nice to have that part of your discussion with parents. And of course here, where like a lot of families, we both work, homework is all often for our elementary students can be, oh, we forgot to see if there's homework. And especially our 10-year-old, about once a week there is. And that's a little bit frustrating. And of course we don't get home, we don't get done with our evening meal until 6:30 or 7 o'clock. And by 8 o'clock we're on our way to bath and bedding down for the night, and often it's an oversight. And I often think of this also, like I said, when I see these kids playing basketball during the week now. It used to be, our sports were Friday and Saturday nights, but it's very common now for, especially like a basketball, wrestling, or something could be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday. And if you have, anything at night during the week, I can't imagine how you function in this. Okay, so there you have it. That is the instruction, and curriculum, and I hope that helps you.